You and I are supposed to have a conversation, and Zach can be a part of this conversation too because he is a big fan of the band as well. You recently did a deep dive into Fear Factory.
Yes, which was because of you. And because of the drama that's going on right
so
now.
I'm a massive Fear Factory fan. I have been, for a very, very long time, and I have followed them through all of their lineup changes and all of their bullshit and all their litigation, and only for all of it to finally, apparently, just sort of come crashing down after a seemingly amicable resolution.
Yeah, no shit.
That got me on Twitter in my feelings, fucking lamenting the loss of an institution. Yeah. And we started talking about Fear Factory, and you decided to take a deep dive into the catalog. And when we mentioned this on Saturday, you said I might not like what you have to say. Now I really got to know. Like, tell us about your journey through Fear Factory, because we talk about them on the show all the time, or I do anyway.
Well, I figured you did. I know that you're a big Fear Factory stan, which kind of surprised me. Yeah, nobody, which, as is your want, like nobody these days would express generally love for those guys in the scene that you're kind of floating in. But as you normally do, you don't give a shit, which you shouldn't. And that's what inspired. It's like, they were a band that I could never get into. I didn't really like their early stuff. It was never heavy enough for me. And I never liked because this is every Fear Factory song, and this is every blah, 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 blah. And see, that's been my problem.
So but the riff also, it's the same riff every time too.
But you know what did get me to decide to go, all right, fuck this. I should give this another chance, especially there's a whole slew of albums I hadn't heard, because I kind of slid them into the nu metal category a long time ago, which I think was unfair, actually, now that I revisited the shit. But it's because no matter what the fuck you say, Dino is tight like a drum. It's just clockwork in terms of appreciating brutal death metal. I think there's a lot of crossover there. And in terms of slam, I think there's a lot of crossover there. I think slam is kind of circling back around to what Fear Factory was intending, in my opinion. So I said, you know what, I like bands like Analepsy and shit. So I think maybe I could re-listen to Fear Factory and maybe find kind of some of that in it. And I started from zero. I went all the way back, which I really don't like Soul of a New Machine. I think it's, everybody talks about how heavy it is and shit. I production-wise, I think it sounds terrible. And I actually love Colin Richardson. He's one of my favorite producers. But Demanufacture was a huge album in my life and a lot of people's lives. I had a lot of friends that changed their fucking life. And to me, when I heard that, I went, oh, these guys are just really sucking Godflesh's dick so hard.
Yes.
And that was my thing with that, which I thought was a good, which I love Godflesh, but I was like, well, they're taking Godflesh and adding some Killing Joke, and then that's basically it, and some nu metal on top of it. But then I actually, now revisiting it, I can appreciate that album. I think it's very well produced. I think it was really ballsy to have Rise Fulber come in, to actually involve industrial musicians in the production of the album was a really ballsy thing at the time. And I am kind of, with that album, when I revisited it, I went, oh, this really was ripped off by 1,000 nu metal bands and shit. Yeah. It really was. It really did kind of start a revolution, kind of the way Heartwork did, but in a different way. So I appreciate it in that way. I still don't really like it that much musically. And then Digimortal, I felt
was a bad record, man.
Terrible. That's their Diablo and Musica or whatever. That's their like where they're caving into the nu metal trends, is what I felt. Do you agree?
Yeah, where they were. Yeah, they got fucking caved on by Roadrunner. That's the classic Roadrunner thing.
That's what it felt like. Yeah, that album feels like a Slipknot album with some industrial elements or something. So you agree?
It is my least favorite Fear Factory record.
As a person just zipping back through it, that's immediately what I felt. And I went, wow, this one really stands out as being bad. So then Obsolete was after that, right?
Obsolete was before that. Obsolete
was
the one
before?
before that. Yes.
Oh, really?
Yes.
That one was so superior. I thought it was after.
No, Obsolete was what followed up Demanufacture.
Okay, I felt Obsolete was actually much better than Demanufacture, and I felt that one had the first couple of songs on it where I was like, okay, this is what I like about these guys. And you might, well, you know all the songs on that album, right? Like probably off the top of your head. What's the one that's like something about, it's like a police state song or something? It's got something.
Securitron.
That one. That song is awesome. I was like, okay, that's a good song. This is the first song of theirs I think is a really good song. So I like that song. That song's really brutal and very punishing, and I felt that's the first song that really felt like an industrial song and not like a new metal song. But then I didn't really find anything else on that album that was as good. Wow, so I thought that was after Digimortal. So, okay, well, that really shuffles things up in my... So which one was after Digimortal?
Okay, so after Digimortal was when everything fell apart. That's when the band, like, that was when they split up for the first time. And
that's Archetype.
Yeah, so Archetype is what came next.
That's my favorite album of theirs.
I liked Archetype.
The one without Dino, I listened to like, this one is amazing. I like every song. I was like, oh, this one. It's not as tight. It's not as tight. I can tell the difference, but I feel it has better composition on it. It's more emotional. I feel that Burton's vocals work better for me on that one. So yeah, that's the part I thought that might not jibe with you, is I actually felt there was it's a huge step down in production. I can tell that's a low budget album compared to, you know, having Rise Fulber and all that shit.
They were off Roadrunner by then, so the money bag dried up. Yeah,
I can tell. And the cover is just their cover artwork has never been, I've never really liked much of their cover artwork, but that one is particularly awful. That looks like some really bad, like, bedroom slam project cover art or something. But the little skeleton arms and legs making it looks terrible. But I really felt that album was that I kept playing it and going like, yeah, I like this song. Nope, I like this song too. Okay, this one's a little weak, but I like the chorus. Like, fuck, I like that one the best. And then the one after it, Transgression, I felt was a really interesting experiment, because I could tell they were very much sucking Killing Joke's dick on that one.
That is the most productive and generous way that you can look at that record, is to say that it is a very interesting experiment.
I felt it had a couple of things on it that Fear Factory had never done, and I felt that it was doing it in an interesting way. But not heavy though. Wasn't heavy.
No, it's not a heavy record, but like they're a band that doesn't always have to be heavy, and they still manage to pull off some pretty good shit. I liked Transgression, but like, you ask anybody who's not like a diehard, as you say, Fear Factory stan, they're gonna tell you that record fucking sucks. But a lot of those like casual listeners of Fear Factory love Digimortal.
That's the that's the new metal one, right?
Yeah.
That's the one that people, that's kind of like their heartwork or their whatever. I
think Obsolete or Demanufacture probably is, but like I don't know, it's really hard to kind of use Carcass as an analogy for Fear Factory.
Well, I guess I was meaning in terms of breaking through into like
I would say that they did really good with Obsolete, and they were poised sort of with the money of Roadrunner backing them, and with sort of the state of metal, and specifically new metal at the time in like 2000, I think is when Digimortal came out. That was when they had the biggest push behind them commercially. And even though the record didn't do, I think, what a lot of people wanted it to, it still resulted in them getting the most exposure. So a lot of people sort of consider that one as like their time in the spotlight. But
let me put a pause on this, because just before I proceed with my evaluation of their recorded output, sir, Zach, are you at all into Fear Factory, or are you like me, an outsider in this?
I don't have much to offer this in-depth conversation that has not already been said, but I am a fan of Fear Factory. I'm more so a casual Slipknot and shit. So it kind of just made sense for me to be a fan of Fear Factory growing up. So they have a special place in my heart. And I like the best. I forget the name.
Oh, that's the next one. We were
Mechanize.
That's the next one.
Yeah.
That record fucking rules.
That's
okay.
Great.
Well, okay, that's interesting. So you're coming at it from the other side. You're not coming at it from the new metal side. That's credit. I will say this as being a crossover band of many genres, and I think we're going to talk about Crypticus, but fuck that. Let's talk about Fear Factory. I'm more interested in this.
We can circle back. We got time.
Do you guys edit? I love it. Well, then I'm going to read my 15-part poem, The Heblos of High, at the end of it. I hope you guys... Okay, the two without Dino I thought were very interesting. One I loved, one was an experiment. Okay, Schuler, why were those released back-to-back in 2 years? That shows trouble as a band. Like, that's way too rushed. Why was that second album so rushed?
They were having a whole lot of issues with their label. They were having issues with their management. They were having issues with the ownership of the name. Apparently,
I wonder who was putting pressure about that on them.
The singer was not very happy, I don't think, with sort of the direction that things went in on Transgression, or maybe it was the band who wasn't as happy with where things went on Transgression.
That was because I was gonna say like Burton's current band sounds more like Transgression.
Yeah. Well, if you the bass player Christian says that what ended up being on the record were demos. Like none of that shit in his mind was finished. I think that they realized after they had already gotten that material put together that they weren't working with something that people were going to respond to very well, and they just tried to get it out and get it done as soon as they could. And they had like the record label that they were on was like Calvin Records or something, a label I'd never heard of and that I don't think did anything else, and I think that they kind of fucked it up behind the scenes too. Now, I'm sure I don't have the full story, but when you say that a 2-year cycle or a 1-year cycle or whatever it was signals that there were some issues there, you are correct. There were definitely some issues behind the scenes.
Shocking. Well, I'm happy to see that my assessment is correct here, because it was really fun to just go back and revisit this band that I had ignored for like 20 years or something and just see like the chronology of what happened, because there is actually I think a more apt comparison be comparing them to Megadeth maybe in terms of the albums and what they influence it. But anyway, this is not the Fear Factory podcast. Let me get this over with. So the one where Dino came back is the one you guys were just... See, yeah, I listened to that one, and I still don't think it's as strong as Archetype, but I could tell that Dino had like a little bit of a, someone put a firebrand up his ass, and he was like, okay, I'll write some riffs on this one, guys. Okay, I'll use more than 4 notes. So yeah, that one does stand out. That one stands out in terms of heaviness.
Yeah.
It stands out, and you could tell the production was just shot through the roof all of a sudden. It's like you could tell Dino brings the production and the budget when he does the Fear Factory albums. But I don't know. I heard a Burton C. Bell that I did on Archetype and Transgression that I did not hear on any other Fear Factory album, and I think that says something. But and then the one after Mechanize was
Death Realist.
That one, I think, from the look on
Mechanized Light.
Well, what are your thoughts on replacing the Atomic Clock, Gene Hoglan, with programmed drums?
It doesn't bother me because it's Fear Factory. I don't have issue. I don't have an issue with programmed drums. I don't. A lot of people get really pissed off when they find out that it's a machine and not a person, and I guess I understand that to an extent, but it doesn't bother me. However, I think it's particularly silly for Fear Factory fans to get up in arms about a band who's been singing about fucking technology for 30 years to embrace that technology. And one of
Good
the cool
point.
things about that is Gene Hoglan was when he was interviewed after having left the band already. When people were talking, I think it was when they were doing promo for the Industrialist, and people were asking Gene Hoglan, who was in Testament at that point, you know, how do you feel about being replaced by a drum machine or whatever? And his answer was, "You never even heard my drums on mechanized. Like they take what I did, and then I think the phrase he used was grit it all out. I don't know exactly what that means, but I assume what he's saying is that he delivered the goods, and then they went through and replaced all that shit with triggers and samples in post-production to make it sound more mechanical. So at the end of the day, you know, where does the machine end and the human begin? These are questions that we must ask ourselves. But no, it didn't fuck with me whatsoever.
I do love Dino's guitar sound, and I love his tightness, and I love his personality. I really wish Dino had a podcast, actually. I know you've interviewed him.
Forearm like a fucking thigh. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, and look, what do his thighs look like then? Yeah, he's a hippo of metal. I actually wish he would just say fuck it and take Fear Factory into brutal death metal. Then I would worship it. Like if he just hired Roger Johansson to do vocals, and just the next Fear Factory album was produced by Colin Richardson with Roger Johansson on vocals. Yeah, that's what I want from Fear Factory.
That'd be a sick move if their next album was just like inappropriately heavy.
Yes.
Dirty slam guttural shit from Fear Factory.
Yeah, and he just completely just jump scenes. I would worship that. I get a tattoo and shit. Yeah,
let's go. Let's promote that.
Yes, please.